So hopefully you can see that. Shout if you cannot. So of course the blue butterfly, that's our logo at Aya, just to remind everybody. The blue is the colour or the frequency of unconditional love, and that's one of our highest values at Aya. And the butterfly is a symbol of transformation, of course, and going on a self-healing journey is a transformation, or it should be. Right then, so let's jump straight to some breath work. So we have done all the 3 different breath works now as part of this course. So we're just going to be going over them now. So today, let's just start with a bit of golden energy yogic breathing. So I'll just remind you quickly, you've got the basic yogic breathing rhythm, and then it's a visualization on top of it, isn't it? So the basic yogic breathing rhythm is belly comes out on the in-breath, chest comes out, and then you fill right up to the top, cram as much air into your lungs as you possibly can, and then you hold for 2 or 3, and then let it all out in a nice, long, slow, steady stream, all the way out to the bottom of the breath. And then when your lungs are completely empty, you hold your breath again for another count of 2 or 3. So that's the technique. The counting is around 4 or 5 to 2 or 3 hold, out for 4 or 5 to 2 or 3 hold at the bottom. And you've got to work out those little timings yourself, really, because everyone's lungs are slightly different. So if you can't do it for, say, the 5 counts of 5 or 5 seconds or 5 heartbeats, whatever you want to do, then just reduce it down. It's the ratio that matters. It's the ratio of the in and out breath versus the breath holds that matters the most. Right then, so the golden energy bit is the visualization where on the in-breath you are visualizing golden energy pouring in from all directions, visualizing that golden energy in your energy body. So on the top of the breath, when you do that breath hold, you can see that your whole energy body is full of golden energy, and then you explode it out in all directions while you're doing that little breath hold. And then on the out breath, the air is coming out of your lungs, but the golden energy holds. Your full body is full of golden energy, and you keep it there on the out breath. And then just repeat on every breathing cycle. Any questions? Okay, great. So I'll let you know when to stop. Again, as normal, vertical spine, and use your nose if you can. Go for it. Let's leave it there. Okay, so hopefully that's reset everybody and got everyone ready, calmed everyone down a little bit, calmed the mind down a little bit, calmed the emotions down a little bit. And now let's go into some chakra breathing, because we've learned chakra breathing now, and certainly in the last lesson we did a fair bit of chakra breathing. So let's carry on with chakra breathing. And first of all, has anybody tried chakra breathing along the way? Any questions about chakra breathing before I go into it? Okay, so you don't actually have to clear those. So they are on this diagram because it is good to do chakra breathing on them, but you don't actually have to clear them because they don't get blocked up with emotional energy. Like the 5 emotion chakras do, because the 5 emotion chakras, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, the root, they are part of the emotional cycle and energy psychology. So they get blocked up with emotional energy, but the brow and the crown do not. They are not part of the emotional cycle. However, it is still good to do chakra breathing on them, because they can be closed. They can be open or closed. It's not emotional energy though, but they can be open or closed. Chakra breathing on all the chakras is a good practice because it helps evolve and grow them all together, giving balance to all the chakras basically. And another reason why it can be good to do chakra breathing on the crown brown is because it trains intuition pathways. Now there's intuition pathways that run between the higher mind and lower mind. This is communication from the soul to the lower mind. And these pathways run through the major chakras. So that's another reason why chakra breathing is so good, because it grows those intuition pathways. So that's why we also sometimes include the brow, the crown. However, when we're doing it in this course, we only really focus on the emotion chakras because it's a course on self-healing, really. So we zone in on the emotion chakras. Okay, so chakra breathing. So let's start with the solar plexus today. So It's the same breathing rhythm, of course. It's always the same breathing rhythm, which makes things nice and easy. So on the in-breath, you're going to be visualizing yellow energy coming in through the solar plexus chakra opening, and your whole body fills up with that yellow energy. And then on the out-breath, that yellow energy is fired back out of the solar plexus opening. So it's like breathing through your solar plexus chakra opening. So we're going to do a few breaths on the front of the solar plexus, and then we're going to move to the back of the solar plexus. So I'll just say something like, okay, move to the back now. And then you just got to change the visualization to the back aspect. And, you know, it's the same thing. Energy has got to come in through the back, fill up your whole energy body, and then come back out of the back aspect. The back aspect can be a lot more difficult than the front, just so you're aware. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to visualize in the back aspects. And sometimes it can help if you try and find the chakra opening on your skin. So try and put your mind in a kinesthetic sensation in your skin, because that focuses the energy there as well. And sometimes that can be a little bit difficult on the back as well. But that's okay, it comes with practice and unblocking blockages. The more blockages come out, the better the sensitivity, basically, with the visualization or the kinesthetic feeling. Okay, happy with that? Do you want to give that a go? Any questions? Okay, sorry, go on. Yes, it's the same breathing rhythm. Yeah, exactly the same breathing rhythm. And really, once you're used to that breathing rhythm, you can do it without counting. It just becomes automatic, doesn't it? I would hazard a guess that you've been doing it a while now, that you could probably do that breathing rhythm without actually counting. It's just, you know, it becomes natural and automatic then, doesn't it? That frees you up to actually concentrate on the visualization. But so you're talking about the ratio, yeah, absolutely, and the speed. It's the same for this one. It's the same as the basic yogic breathing and the same as the golden energy yogic breathing. The rhythm is the same. Yeah. Okay, lovely. All right then. So, okay, give that a go then. I will let you know when to stop, or I'll let you know when to go to the back anyway. Okay, now let's swap straight to the back aspect. Okay, let's leave it there. Okay, how was that? Did anyone got any questions or comments about that? So that's interesting because, you know, with chakra breathing, it's slightly different to golden energy yogic breathing, because you're now zoning in on the chakras and zoning in on the particular frequencies and separating each chakra out and finding the blockages individually. You know, with golden energy yogic breathing, it's very generic. You're just working out your energy body, and it does help with removing blockages from everywhere. But, you know, chakra breathing really targets those individual chakras. And sometimes your higher mind will give you a message. Sometimes, and that's the same, you could say that it's your subconscious part of your mind is giving you a message. And this is why chakra breathing is so good for diagnostic purposes, to find your own blockages. Because say if you're doing some chakra breathing on the solar plexus and you see a green color, quite often that's your higher mind telling you that you should be working on your heart chakra rather than your solar plexus chakra. That can happen. But, you know, you can only, you get to know your chakras, really, generally speaking. Now, I think with you, Dominique, I think there will only be residual, you've been working on it for a while, and I think there'll only be residual blockages left, but that might be telling you that you've still got a bit of a residual blockage left in the heart chakra, perhaps. So if you get something like that, then you go to the heart and you see what it's like on the heart, and you compare it, and you keep doing more breaths on the heart, front and back. And in the end, you get to know your chakras, basically. Anyone else? So the reason I went to the solar plexus chakra there is because that's a very important chakra when it comes to self-healing. And we're going to learn why in this lesson, because the solar plexus chakra actually governs quite a lot of the other chakras when it comes to energy psychology. And I'm going to explain why in this lesson. So keeping on top of the solar plexus chakra is always very, very important because it has such an impact on all the other chakras. So quick reminder though, the Aya Healing Pyramid. The Aya Healing Pyramid is a tetrahedron and it's got information on 3 sides. And don't worry about trying to read that. because I'm going to show you the sides. And the blue side is the names of the layers, of course. The material body layer, the bioenergy layer, the emotional layer, the psychological layer, and the spiritual layer. So we've done the material body layer, we've done the bioenergy layer, we've done the emotional layer, and this month we're doing the psychological layer. And then next month we'll be doing the spiritual layer. So the green side are the self-healing techniques that we apply to each one of those layers to keep those layers healthy. And then the yellow side is the results of self-healing, or the goals of self-healing. And don't forget, there is a cascading effect of health and well-being down this pyramid. So all the layers affect each other, but especially from top to bottom. So there's a massive impact or cascading effect that each layer has on the layer underneath it. I think what you mean there is, so what I'm interpreting there is that when you're doing breath work, quite often it's meditative, and that you're doing meditation while you're doing breath work, like doing the counting and the focusing and all that sort of thing. I think that's what you mean, isn't it? But they're actually two completely different things that you're doing. So the breath work itself is a mechanical system of moving the energy body and stressing the energy body and breaking blockages apart in the chakras by forcing them to spin. But meditation is a completely different thing, because meditation, what you're doing is you're training your focus of awareness in the mind so that you can start to feel the inner peace of the background state of being, your true self, the awareness behind the mind. So that's the purpose of meditation, is to find the true self. Whereas the purpose of breath work is to remove blockages from the energy body. Yes, absolutely. So whenever you're concentrating the mind, it is a form of meditation as well. So they can be combined, but the two purposes are very different. That's all. Yeah, you can do some of these all at the same time. You know, you can exercise, you can meditate while you're exercising, you can meditate while you're eating. You know, you can do breath work. You're doing breath work while you exercise, because you're breathing heavily. So you can do all these together, really. But we separate them out so that they're easier to understand. Right then, so the psychological layer. So the psychological layer is everything within the personality, really, we could say, or everything within the lower mind subconscious, or brain subconscious. That includes our subconscious memories, our personality characteristics, our psychological identity, and our values. But let's look at this a little bit closer, because there's one thing that's very important that's in the psychological layer, and that is the mask. The mask identity. Now, we're going to talk a lot about this in this lesson, but this is kind of almost the most important thing to understand about the psychological layer, how the mask identity is actually created. The mask identity is the human identity. It's that little sense of self that we have in the lower mind, in the brain. And it's what shouts constantly, me, 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 me. It's all about me. Now that can be heightened in some people and lessened in some people, but at the end of the day, that little sense of self is a self-centered sense of identity. That's what it is, and it's perfectly natural. That's how the human being has evolved. It evolved millions of years ago when animals started to become social animals and live together in groups, and it evolved as a way of individualizing the animals in the group. Of course, that has grown and grown and grown into humans. It's a very sophisticated bit of psychology, to be honest with you. But it backfires, doesn't it? It backfires drastically and causes a lot of suffering. So we need to understand it. So let's look at the psychological layer in more detail. So in this analogy, we're going to use the concept of a house for our mind. Now, this is an analogy that is used fairly often as well. And, by the way, it's also a metaphor that's used by our higher minds sometimes in our dreams. It's a very common metaphor that comes through in people's dreams when they're rummaging around a house, that is actually a metaphor for their mind. So it's a very well-known analogy using a house. Now, everything in this house, in the brickwork, is subconscious, and everything in the roof area is conscious, means you're aware of it. And there's lots of things going on in our body that we're not aware of course. The whole regulation of our body mostly is completely subconscious, isn't it? So let's start this diagram with the mind stream. The mind stream is the stream of thoughts which comes through our mind all day long. And, many people don't even notice that they have thoughts coming through their mind all day long because it's such a consistent thing. It's always there, isn't it? Some people call this the voice in the head. Now that's conscious, of course. These are conscious thoughts. Now we've put emotions on this diagram, but it's outside of the house because it's not technically part of the psychological layer. But it's on the diagram because it's so important. Thoughts and emotions are very, very interlinked because thoughts generate the emotions. So it's on this diagram because it's important. And both of these go into forming memories. So we roam about the world, go through our lives, creating memories, don't we? We have experiences all the time. And these experiences are forming memories constantly. Now, it is our mind and emotions which actually determine how those memories are laid down. The brain prioritizes certain things that it thinks is more important than other things. And some stuff gets thrown away and some stuff gets laid down in memory. That's why we don't remember everything in our lives. We remember the important bits. Or what your brain thinks are the important bits. That's a very key thing to understand. It's the evolution of the brain which is determining what is important here. And it's the mind and emotions which influence it. So this is an evolutionary thing. If you think in the past, fear, for example, fear evolved in early animals as a survival mechanism. If they have a dangerous situation, which they survive from, and they have fear in that moment, that fear lays down those memories really strongly. It's emotional memory. And then later on, when that dangerous situation comes up again, they'll be fearing it already, so they may stay away from it. And it keeps them alive. So that's why emotions and thoughts that generate them are so integral in laying down memory. Now, memories are laid down in a bit of a wishy-washy, higgledy-piggledy fashion, really. It's a stack of memories which is kind of a mess, isn't it? And I'm sure everybody can recognize that because it causes problems. It's not a perfect system. It causes issues. And we'll talk about these issues or afflictions in a bit. Out of these memories are formed personality characteristics. And of course, we're talking about humans now, although animals do have personality characteristics, of course. But in self-healing, we need to understand our personality characteristics, and they come from this jumbled mass of memories. And then these personality characteristics organize themselves into values. We prioritize some of them. We call them values, the things that we find most important. And now for the really interesting bit. The mask identity, or some people call it the ego, or the egoic identity, or some people call it the false self, or the little self, or psychological self. There's lots of names for this bit of psychological kit. So the mask identity is generated inside the subconscious mind, inside the lower mind or brain. But it is a mask which is generating the mind stream. So that stream of thoughts that we have all day long is coming from the mask identity, which is governing all of those memories and characteristics. But then it's the mind stream which influences how the memories are laid down. So we're going round in a circle, aren't we? So one influences the other. Now, it's very easy to spiral into negativity if we allow the subconscious mind to do whatever it wants. And this is where afflictions of the mind come up, or problems in the mind which cause negative things that we want to get rid of. Anxiety, for example. A very easy example, which is very prevalent right now. Anxiety is an affliction in the mind. And it's caused by this particular cycle. Whenever you leave the mind to do whatever it wants, it will do this. It will cause problems in the mind. So this lesson is about how we unravel those problems or those afflictions and we do something about it. Now, this psychological cycle that's going on in our minds is governing our behavior, isn't it? So if we want to change our behavior, then we need to look inside the psychological layer, because all our actions are preceded by a thought process and this cycle in the mind. And when I say behavior here, I'm not just talking about what we normally think of as bad behavior or anything, but anxiety. For example, fear of failure, for example, will stop somebody or limit somebody in their lives. It will stop them from doing things that they'd like to do because they have fear of failure. So that's where the psychology in the mind, an affliction in the mind, a fear of failure is an affliction of the mind, will limit or affect somebody's behavior. Okay, any questions about that before I move on? Yeah, it's woven into it. It's part of this, basically, yeah. And survival instinct is part of this psychological cycle, but you will have to add on the concept of karma here as well, karma emotion, because karma emotion is emotional memory, and this emotional memory gets dragged through lifetime after lifetime. That's where the idea of instinct will come from. So especially animal instinct. Now, animal instinct is not really a very well understood thing in science. How an animal can be born and have certain instincts about something without being taught by its parents. Now, our theory is that is karma emotion. That's emotional memory coming across from a previous incarnation. So yeah, with instincts, you've got to consider the psychological layer and the emotional layer there. So let's move on to energy psychology. So energy psychology is something we introduced last month in the emotional layer. But now let's look at it in more detail. So energy psychology is the link between energy and psychology. Now this is, by the way, this is a growing field in the field of healing, energy psychology. It's the link between, more specifically, it's the link between the chakras, the emotion chakras, and the psychology in the mind, the personality. How are the emotion chakras linked to the personality? When I keep saying that the emotion chakras are emotion regulators, how does that happen? How are they linked? That's what energy psychology is. So first of all, just to remind you about the emotion chakras. There are 5 emotion chakras, and they sit along the spinal column in the energy body, and they are part of the major chakras. So when you Google chakras and look online and stuff, very often you'll see the 7 chakra system, and that's just including the brow and the crown chakra. You might see a 9 chakra system, which includes the 8th chakra and the 9th chakra, which is above your head. But for energy psychology, the only relevant ones are the 5 emotion chakras: the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. Now, each one of these chakras has access to the emotional system in the material body. So we talked about this last month. So quite often when you research it, I think there's quite often quite a few misunderstandings out there about some of these chakras, where some people will try and link a throat chakra to a particular gland in the body or something like that. But actually these chakras, they kind of work together. They work together as a whole unit, really. And every one of those chakras has access to the whole emotional system in the material body. And the material body emotional system is the endocrine system and the limbic system. Limbic system is a system in the center of the brain which deals with emotions, emotional processing, and emotional memory. And the endocrine system is a system of glands in the body which dish out hormones, and they regulate lots of different things in the body, including mood, and they can affect emotion. So the throat chakra can access all of the emotions, whether it's fear, anger, love, jealousy, hatred, the whole range. The throat chakra can access all of them. The heart chakra can do the same. They can all do that. Now, each one of these chakras represents or regulates a set of characteristics in the personality. So the throat chakra regulates everything to do with communication of self-expression in the personality. And that can be a whole range, a whole host of characteristics, but that's the broad category. The heart chakra is attachment to loving relationships. The solar plexus chakra is identification with beliefs. The sacral is reproduction and parental care. And the root chakra is safety, security, and survival. So these are the sets of characteristics, and the whole of the human personality can fit into those sets of characteristics. Now think of these characteristics, sets of characteristics, as a balance scale, where it's balancing in the middle, of course. And these characteristics, what is the balance? Well, on one side, you've got too much of something. On the other side, you've got too little of something. So, for example, in the throat chakra, somebody can be an extrovert or an introvert. And part of that could be somebody talks way too much or somebody talks way too little. For example, there's always an imbalance of something. Well, not always, but often in a personality, there is this balance scale, and you are somewhere in that characteristic, you're somewhere along the balance scale, wherever it is, and everybody's slightly different. Now, the thing is, this balance scale can also be thought of as an emotional scale. And the further you are out to the ends of the balance scale, the more negative emotion that you'll be feeling. And just going back to the example I just gave, an extrovert, which is all the way over one side, may well have a fear of being alone, for example. All the way to the other side of the balance scale, an introvert, they may have a fear of being around people. So it's the extremes of this balance scale which you're going to find the negative emotions. And our personality is chock full of all of these characteristics, and some of them generate negative emotions. Now, self-healing is all about picking these out and doing something about it, basically. So where are the positive emotions? In the center, in the balance point. That's why balance is so important. Balancing everything in your life, really. But here we're talking about psychology. You can balance your own personality, balance your own psychology. So it's in the middle, in the balance point, where you're going to find the positive emotions. So that's what we are looking for in self-healing. And we're going to come back to this later in the lesson and explain or give a way of doing that, basically. So the next thing, before we talk about how to fix those issues, something to talk about is the solar plexus chakra. Very important chakra. And this is why we did some chakra breathing on the solar plexus chakra when we started. So the solar plexus chakra is a very important one because it kind of governs all the other chakras. It's like a central place that has an impact on all the other places in our personality. Because it's all about identification with beliefs. It's the identity. It's where the identity is centered. And what's the identity? It's the mask identity that we were talking about earlier. It's the egoic identity, the little self, the false self, that little sense of self that everybody has, the human identity. And there's a reason why why the phrase the human condition exists. It's because of that human identity. the human condition of perpetual suffering, you know? That is the human identity itself. And that is all located or governed by the solar plexus chakra. Because the solar plexus governs all the things we're identified with. And our personality is constructed out of hundreds or even thousands or even millions of beliefs. Lots and lots of beliefs. Beliefs about the world around us, beliefs about ourselves, all that goes into the identity. And where does all that come from? Our experiences and our memories, of course. We go through our life experiencing, forming memories, and then the mask identity gets it all together and forms beliefs about things. And then it identifies with them, i.e., it brings them into its identity. So understanding the solar plexus chakra is the key to understanding the human identity, which is the key to understanding or unraveling all those problems in the psychology. And don't forget, it's a false identity. It's not real. And the way that we are using this word false, by the way, the context that we're using it in is we're saying it's false because it is impermanent, as opposed to the true self, pure awareness, pure peaceful awareness, which is permanent. And we can talk about that some other time, probably in the next lesson, actually. We're doing the spiritual layer. But we're in the psychological layer here, and we're talking about the mask identity. It is a false identity. It's just a psychological construct. That's all it is. And it goes up and down all the way through the course of our lives. It's constantly changing, and it's constantly bothering us. It's like an unruly child, isn't it? So that's why it's false. It's impermanent. Looks like Steve's having problems with his computer again. So the false identity. I'm making a massive point of this because as we go into next month's lesson, we're going to talk about the spiritual layer, and that is all about identity and dropping the false identity and looking for the true self, the true identity, your true identity. So that's the solar plexus chakra. Identification with beliefs. Now, let's just have a quick look at what beliefs may be causing this identity. Now we can have, there's so many different types of beliefs. We're not going to go through all of them, but just as a quick example, you can have survival related beliefs, can't you? You can believe that the fire is hot, for example, and you can believe that you're going to get burnt if you put your hand in the fire. Now that's a very useful belief, isn't it? But it's a survival related belief. And it's unlikely that you make that part of your identity, of course, unless you're a fireman or something like that. But generally speaking, you don't identify much with survival-related beliefs. There's other types of beliefs, of course, like ideological beliefs and religious beliefs, that sort of thing. But let's focus more on beliefs about oneself, because that's probably the most relevant in the time that we've got. That's the most relevant to self-healing, really. Beliefs about oneself. So these are things like your name. I am such and such, or I am a gender, or a race, or a religion, or I am a nationality, or I'm good at this, or I'm good at that, or your profession. Or perhaps a characteristic like I'm a friendly person, or I'm an angry person, or whatever. So there's loads of these types of beliefs about oneself, and there's some of them that can be very strong, of course. I am a sports team supporter, especially with things like football. That can actually become part of someone's identity, can't it? Or a disability, or a medical condition, or something like that. That tends to be brought into the identity structure. So it's all about I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. That's these beliefs we have about ourselves. But the thing is, quite often these are either limiting beliefs or they're completely wrong beliefs. So a limiting belief, and these are terms that are well known in psychotherapy and psychology, but a limiting belief is a belief that limits a person in some way, of course. And we talked about one earlier, the fear of failure is a limiting belief. I believe that I will fail. That will limit somebody in some way. A wrong belief, well, obviously, that's just plain wrong. And plenty of people believe stuff about themselves that's just not true. But the thing is, the mind doesn't care. The mind doesn't care whether it's true or not. The mind is a habit-forming machine, and it will construct the psychology in the mind however it deems fit for survival. And there's not really any overarching plan to it. It's just a habit-forming machine. So it doesn't matter if something's wrong or not, it will still believe it. So this is how the identity is formed. Loads and loads and loads of beliefs which we become identified with. And you can see by that list of beliefs, you can see how it can just change all the way through the course of your life, because it changes with changing memories, changing experiences. So how do we know if we're identified with something? Well, how do you know if you're identified with something? Well, it's all about emotion. How much emotion does it generate? And we're talking about negative emotion here because the whole point of this, the whole point of understanding this, is to pick out the parts that are causing us pain and doing something about them. So we need to identify them first, don't we? How much emotion is it generating? I mean, look at the sports team supporter one, for example. Especially football. Football's the best example, isn't it? People get completely identified with that football team, and that ends up causing a lot of problems, doesn't it? I mean, look at football hooliganism, for example. There's a lot of emotion being generated because of that identification with that football team. So that's how you tell if you're identified with something, how much emotion is caused, especially when it's challenged. The identity doesn't like to be challenged. That's when the emotion gets generated, and quite often that identity or the ego will react to defend itself, because it's identity that's being challenged. Its very reason to exist is being challenged, and it will react violently in many cases. So self-healing is all about trying to find, in the psychological layer, it's all about trying to find these characteristics, identifying them, and then doing something about them. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Yes, okay, I was just about to go into breath work, but let's stop for a break and then do some breath work. Excellent. See you guys in a minute. Okay, lovely. Well, let's do some breath work now. So on this screen, you can see both the chakra breathing and the golden energy yogic breathing, of course. But and that I only do that just because if there's somebody new joining, then it's best for them to do the golden energy one rather than the chakra breathing. But I think everybody here has done chakra breathing, so let's just crack on with chakra breathing, I think. So now let's move to the sacral. Let's go to the sacral chakra and do chakra breathing on that. So, of course, sacral chakra is just around the tummy area, and it's orange energy that you want to be visualizing coming in. And don't forget about your breathing rhythm while you're doing the visualization, by the way, because it is quite easy sometimes to concentrate so much on the visualization that the breathing rhythm kind of loses out a little bit, and you don't do the technique correctly. So remember to really go to the top and fill out your lungs as much as possibly can, and then at the bottom of the breath try and push out as much air as you can to empty your lungs as well. So try and keep that rhythm still technically accurate. So we'll start with the front opening on the sacral chakra, and I'll let you know when to go to the back aspect as well. And try and put your mind in the area that you're trying to visualize that energy coming through. Because, not everybody responds well to visualizations. Sometimes people respond more to the kinesthetic feeling in the body. And as a chakra becomes unblocked, you tend to get more and more little sensations in the body when you're doing the chakra breathing. And those sensations can be little buzzy feelings or little tingly feelings, or sometimes hot, sometimes cold, and other types of energy feelings, basically. Okay, so give that a go. I'll let you know when to move to the back aspect, okay? Okay, now move to the back aspect. Yeah, that'll do. Any questions or comments about that one? We'll go on to the root chakra in a minute. Okay, so the sacral, just going over some of the energy psychology. that we've just been through. The sacral is reproduction and parental care. Let me just remind you, in fact, the throat chakra, communication of self-expression. The heart chakra, attachment to loving relationships. The solar plexus chakra, identification with beliefs. The sacral chakra is reproduction and parental care. And the root chakra is safety, security, and survival. So we've just done the sacral chakra there. If we have any issues with our children, for example, there will be a blockage in the sacral chakra. Or sometimes it's almost the opposite, that somebody maybe can't have children and that's caused issues. It's the same thing. That will cause a blockage in the sacral chakra. Okay, let's do the root chakra then. So the root chakra is a different one to the other ones because there's only one opening and it faces down. And again, this will be the same for the crown chakra except facing upwards. So the root chakra, you want to be visualizing that red energy going up the spine, basically. So visualize the red energy going up the spine, filling up the energy body with red energy, and then going back out the bottom of the spine. And there's no second opening for the root chakra, of course. It's just got that one opening. Okay, so give that a go and I'll let you know when to stop. Okay, so another important thing to mention about chakra breathing is that it's possible that it's a good idea to keep on top of the chakras all the time, really. But once a chakra is unblocked, then there's no need necessarily to do chakra breathing on it. But it's important to go and check whether it's been blocked up again or not. Because very often it will become blocked up again because the energy is coming from, the blocked up energy is coming from the emotional cycle, of course. And the emotional cycle is triggered by the personality characteristics that we've just been talking about. So, without fixing the psychology, the emotional energy is always going to be generated whenever you feel that emotion, and then that goes and blocks the chakra up again. So it's a good idea to do this regularly, to do a round of chakra breathing, just to check where the blockages are. Once you've got rid of all your blockages, then you can just periodically go back and go, okay, what's been blocked up again? And you'll soon get to know your chakras, and you'll know when it's open. You might have a very strong visualization and it looks clean, or you may have strong energy sensations, and then when you come back a couple of weeks later or something, you realize, oh, it's really sticky, it's really difficult to do, difficult to visualize, or you can't feel anything there. Then you know that chakra has been blocked up again. So it's a case of constant repetition and getting to know your chakras, really. But it's a very important routine that needs to be included in everybody's routine, really. Okay, any questions about chakra breathing before we move on? Okay, now let's move to the second part, so we've done part one, which is or should say side one, which is the names of the layers. So we've talked about what the psychological layer refers to. Now let's talk about side two, which is the self-healing techniques that we use to keep each layer healthy. And for the psychological layer, it's called awareness of the mind stream. And we'll explain exactly why. So just going back to this little diagram of the mind and using the analogy of the house, just to quickly remind you again, the mind stream and the emotions, they go into forming the memories. The memories are laid down in a junky type way all over the place, but out of them emerges personality characteristics. And we know now, of course, that those personality characteristics are categorized in those 5 different categories and regulated by those particular chakras. Now, out of those personality characteristics, values emerge. The mind prioritizes certain characteristics, and we can call them values. And then the mask identity governs the whole lot. But it's the mask identity which is causing the mind stream. This is the cycle that's going on inside the psychology. Now, where in this whole picture can we possibly have any control? That's the question. I'm going to answer it in a second, but just going to pause for a minute and let you think about that. Where can we exert any control over this process? Because we can't directly impact what's going on. So we can't directly control what's going on in the subconscious because we're not aware of those processes. The only place that you can have control is something that you're aware of. And that is the only thing that is in the roof, in the conscious bit, is the mind stream. So the mind stream is where we can have control of this cycle. And when can we have control of this cycle? Well, when do we have the mind stream? It's always in the present moment, isn't it? Our thoughts, our conscious thoughts, are always in the present moment. So that's when we have to exert control over this cycle. That's the only time that we can do it. So that's why our self-healing techniques are broadly called, first of all, become aware of the mind stream. That's the first thing to do, is become aware of the mind stream. Now, you guys might be very well aware of your mind stream, of course, but there are many people out there who haven't even thought about all this kind of stuff, and they just go through their lives and thoughts are just going constantly through their mind, and they're not even aware of them. Well, they're aware of them, but in a way it's almost unconscious, isn't it? You've got to stop and look inside, haven't you, to become aware of the thoughts that are going through your mind. And that's what we have to do. And sometimes that's quite a difficult process, isn't it? Because you forget to look. Some people you can get present moment reminders on apps and things like that. Or I think, was it you that used to put sticky notes around your house to say, become aware or something? Yeah, because you forget, because before you know it, there's 3 or 4 hours gone and you haven't even realized you've been thinking. So there's 2 exercises that we're going to teach as part of this course. There's lots of things that you can do in the psychological layer, but there's 2 exercises that we're going to teach, and that is called Afflictions of the Mind and Rewire Your Mind. And both of these need awareness. First of all, of course, you need to become aware of what's going on inside your mind to apply these 2 exercises. And these are both forms of introspection. That is looking inside and inspecting what is there, basically. So let's look at the first one. First, afflictions of the mind. What is an affliction of the mind? So, this is our little definition. A characteristic that has snowballed larger and larger and become problematic for you or others around you. So basically, it's one of our characteristics that's grown in the mind, and it's become annoying. It's become painful. It's causing suffering in some way. So these always start at some point with some sort of event. They always have a beginning, of course. And at that point, it's not really a characteristic. It's not really a part of your personality at all. But you can, we can say it's a traumatic event sometime in the past. And it doesn't have to be hugely traumatic, it can just be little things, But when that happens, it creates strong emotions. Now, over time, every time that situation occurs again, you'll get the same emotions. And you'll start overthinking about that particular event. So it triggers the same emotion, and it triggers the thinking patterns in the mind, and those thinking patterns in the mind start to grow and snowball. And the emotions that you're feeling when the event happens reinforces the memory that was there in the first place. So it gets bigger and bigger. This characteristic gets bigger and bigger every time. Now, you could call this a habit. It is a habit, really. The mind or the brain is a habit-forming machine. That's what it does, basically. It forms these habits, and these habits get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's all a personality characteristic is, really. And that sort of ties in with the idea it's all just a false identity. It's not real. These characteristics can be molded, and they get shaped with our experiences, that's all. You can also think of it, if you like, instead of growing, you can think of it as like grooves in the mind. Every time you run along those grooves, they get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You can look at it like that as well, if you like. So over a long period of time, these thought patterns will just get ingrained in our subconscious. And that's when they become part of our identity and part of our personality. And that's when you get these strong emotions sometimes, and you don't even know why you've got these emotions. For example, I used to have a fear of public speaking, and that used to be terrifying because I had to do it as part of my work. And that was part of my self-healing journey to get rid of that. That was a throat chakra fear, of course. But I didn't know where it came from. I couldn't get it. And I searched and searched and searched and traced the memories back in my life, back to try and find that first event. Because, it was just an uncontrollable reaction, and, I couldn't figure out where the hell it was coming from. Eventually, actually, I've kind of found it, but it wasn't in this lifetime. It was in a previous lifetime. So that's another thing that can happen. But it doesn't really matter whether it's come from this lifetime or a previous lifetime. That's karma emotion, by the way, if it's a previous lifetime. It doesn't really matter because the way you treat it is always the same. So these are habits, afflictions of the mind. Afflictions of the mind are just habits. And we can unravel these afflictions. But we have to do it with awareness. We have to understand what's going on in our mind. So the first thing to do in afflictions of the mind is to write down all of your afflictions. So this is where we have to look inside ourselves and understand our personality and what causes us pain, what we don't like. It's like going into your mind, your personality, and choosing what you want to keep and what you want not to keep. And you can do that. You can actually do that with self-healing. We're going to teach you how to do that with the next exercise. So that's afflictions of the mind. Writing down all your personality characteristics that you don't want and prioritizing them from, the worst at the top and then onwards, basically. So what do we do once we've actually written these down? We've got our list of afflictions of the mind. We move on to the next exercise, which is called Rewire Your Mind. Now, the Rewire Your Mind exercise works with the neuroplasticity of the brain, or lower mind. So neuroplasticity is a well-known concept in neuroscience, and it's the idea that the neurons in the brain, all those billions of neurons in the brain, they can actually grow or shrink depending on how much they are used. So when we have a thought pattern, it's loads of neurons firing off electrically in the brain, basically. That's a thought pattern. Now, every time we have that thought, then the neuron grows, or all the neurons start to grow. But if we don't have that thought, if we don't use that thought pattern, they will start to shrink. That's what neuroplasticity is. So we can use this because that's how they got there in the first place. Those negative characteristics, those personality characteristics in the mind with all those thought patterns that they generate, they got there because of neuroplasticity. Over a period of time, constant, repetitive, negative thinking. That's how it got there in the first place. So we're going to reverse that using neuroplasticity. And it is a little bit like taking out the trash. It's very much like getting rid of the rubbish in the mind. You're going to delve into your mind and you're going to get rid of the stuff you don't want, basically. So we start by choosing the most troublesome affliction of the mind. And first of all, you have to become aware the moment the thought pattern hits. That's the first step, because it's got to be done in the present moment. Remember the diagram? The only place that you can actually have an effect is in the present moment in the mind stream. So this exercise has to be done when you have that thought pattern hit. If it's fear of public speaking, it'll be all those thoughts that you get. Oh, did I look silly? Or am I going to look silly? Do I know my stuff? All that sort of stuff that's going through the mind. So you become aware that the moment that thought pattern hits, and you reverse the thought pattern. So now I need to take you back to that balance scale that we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. The balance scale of the personality characteristics, where you're too far one way or too far the other way. If you're too extroverted, for example, let's use the example of the fear of judgment, because this was another one of mine that I worked on through my self-healing journey. The fear of judgment. You've got a balance scale. On one end of the scale, you've got you care too much about what people think of you. or you believe that what people think of you can harm you, for example. On the complete other end of the scale, you've got don't care what anyone thinks of you whatsoever, which can be unhealthy as well, because it's going to ostracize you from society. So it's somewhere in the middle that you want to be. So say for me, it was care too much about what people think of you. You need to reverse that thought pattern. Whenever those those worrying, fearing thoughts hit, you've got to reverse the thought pattern and bring it back to the center point, the balance point. How do you do that? You do that through mantra meditation and visualizations, or you can even do it with your actions. But let's take the most easiest, is a mantra meditation. A mantra is a repeated thought or phrase in the mind, basically. So you choose a phrase and you repeat it in the mind. Whenever you get those fearful thoughts, you repeat your phrase. And that's actually going to overwrite that thought pattern. We're using neuroplasticity because the negative one is going to shrink and the positive one, the opposite, is going to grow. And we choose the completely other end of the scale when I say opposite. So, for example, if the fearing thoughts were, oh, what does that person think of me? Constantly thinking that with fear attached to it, then you choose the complete opposite. You choose, I don't care what anyone thinks of me in the world. And you repeat that. Every time you get the worrying thoughts, you repeat that over the top of it. You don't allow those negative thoughts to carry on. You just repeat your mantra, which is completely the other end of the scale. That brings your scale back to the balance point. And this really does work. I've done it myself many times. And by the way, it is also, I think it is also a recognized exercise as well in psychotherapy. Now, you've got to be careful though, because once you reach the balance point, you need to stop. You don't want to go too far the other way, because it will do that. The more you repeat those phrases, some people call them affirmations, we call them mantras. The more you repeat those mantras, the more those neurons will grow. So you want to be careful you don't go too far the other way. You don't want to end up not caring what anybody thinks of you in the whole world. So whenever you get to the balance point, you drop the exercise. You're done. You're in the balance point. And you can do that for all of your afflictions of the mind. But the key is repetition. That is the most important thing here. Because those characteristics got there because of repetition, again and again and again over a long period of time. Constant negative, repetitive thought patterns again and again and again. All that damage that's happening. That's why it's so important for people to become aware of their mind stream, because when it's left in an uncontrolled way, it does what it wants. It goes on autopilot. And people just constantly get stuck in this loop of negativity. The damage that's creating, because it's building these personality characteristics that person doesn't want. But it's repetition that undoes it as well. So this exercise works on repetition. Doing it once or twice is not going to do anything. You've got to do it every time that thought pattern hits. It's got to become a habit in itself. And eventually, it will change. Okay, so that's it for the Rewire Your Mind exercise. Any questions about Rewire Your Mind? Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that if there's any self-doubt in a person, then they should start with the self-doubt, because the self-doubt itself is a personality characteristic. So if there's self-doubt or self-judgment as well. So self-judgment is another thing that you have to be careful about when you go through this process, because you don't want to go through all your negative personality characteristics and then just constantly judge yourself or constantly doubt yourself whether it will change. So yeah, if you've got any of them two, you need to deal with them first, basically. But yeah, as to your other point there, self-esteem. So that's part of what we call the self-esteem scale. Now, we haven't talked about it today, but it is part of the psychological layer. And the self-esteem scale is an imaginary scale. I want to say that. It's an illusory and imaginary scale that we all have inside. It's inside the lower mind. And basically on the low end, you've got low self-esteem or self-doubt. And in the middle you've got healthy confidence, and then on the if you got too much self-esteem, then it goes into arrogance, doesn't it? So that's the self-esteem scale. But that's all about self-judgment. That's the problem. It's about self-judgment. Everybody judges themselves by comparing themselves to other people, and they put themselves on this social hierarchy. So this is what creates social hierarchies, isn't it? They place themselves on a social hierarchy due to judging themselves, comparing themselves to other people. But then everybody's doing it. So it creates this mass social hierarchy. But it's all a complete psychological illusion, isn't it? It's like a mass form of hysteria or complete madness, to be honest with you, if you think about it, because it's just an illusion. It's a psychological illusion, and it constantly changes. Okay, so lastly, side 3. So we've done the side 1, the name of the layer, psychological layer. We've done the self-healing techniques, side 2, and then this is side 3, just to remind you really about the results of self-healing. So in the psychological layer, you can see that it's healthy values. And we can choose those values, basically. So you can actually, we've talked about removing the negative stuff out of our personality, choosing it and removing it. You can actually go the other way as well and choose whatever personality characteristics you want and make them your values. And this is where you can actually change your personality from, if there's any negative bits, you can change it and increase the positive as well. So we can actually choose healthy values that we think are beneficial and increase them. And you can do that using the Rewire Your Mind exercise as well. You can do it with positive characteristics. And just a reminder about the cascading effect again. If you find peace and unity in the spiritual layer, that has a massive impact on the psychological layer. It starts to smooth out all the psychological layer. And of course, you're working on the psychological layer at the same time as well to make it smoother and more healthy. Then that has a massive impact on the emotional layer. You start producing more positive karma emotions rather than the negative ones, of course, which means you start feeling more positive and less negative. That has a massive impact on the bioenergy layer, because it gives you balanced emotion chakras instead of imbalances in the chakras, because when we have a blockage in an emotion chakra, it creates this imbalance in the personality. And that's the same as the personality scale, the balance scale that we talked about today. And then if you have balanced emotion chakras, you're going to give yourself the best opportunity of having a healthy material body, because blockages in the energy body causes ill health in the material body. And of course, you're working on each one of these layers all at the same time as well. Okay, that's it for the theory. We want to try and fit in a meditation as well. But has anyone got any questions or any other questions or comments about what we've looked at today? Yeah, well, healthy, we've used the word healthy because it's quite broad, and we don't want to influence people in any way. They have to choose themselves what they consider healthy. But, if you're going to ask our opinion, it's always going to come down to spiritual evolution. What are the values that are best placed to point you into the direction of spiritual evolution, to evolve spiritually quicker? Those are the values that we need to prioritize, because that gets us to the goal quicker. That gets us to self-realization quicker, incarnation after incarnation. It's a long journey of spiritual evolution. So any values that are going to help that, these are the healthy values, basically. But other than that, it's up to people to choose their values independently, really. But, that's the purpose of the universe. Self-realization, that's the purpose of life. That's the journey of reincarnation. That's the journey of spiritual evolution. So the values are what points people in that direction, because the values are kind of the mask identity is actually generating those values and then pointing the direction, basically. Yes, and what you're just talking about is the cascading effect of the pyramid from the spiritual layer to the psychological layer. So yes, absolutely. So meditation and all spiritual practices and meditation, trying to spend as much time in the true self of pure peaceful awareness as possible, impacts the psychological layer. It starts to smooth it all out, basically. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But this is life, isn't it? And self-healing can help with all aspects of life. So you know, things happen to people all the time, don't they? And you can react to it very negatively, or you can react to it positively, or you can react to it neutrally. But self-healing will always help you react to circumstances of life in a positive way. So it's very important to always practice self-healing techniques, because it's going to help you with whatever happens to you in your life, basically. And your personal circumstances, you may be going through a lifetime where you've got a lot of struggling and there's a lot of hurdles in the way. But self-healing is when you need that the most, because you can suffer that much from it, or you can suffer that much from it. And self-healing will allow you to suffer less as you're going through these personal experiences. Yeah, and it can be hard. Yeah, but it's all about perseverance and keeping going, basically, and training and practicing and training the mind, training the habit forming capacity of the mind for your own benefit, instead of in an uncontrolled way. Yeah. All right, let's do a little meditation then, shall we? And if anyone, it's 12 o'clock, so if anyone needs to shoot off, then go ahead. But I'm gonna sit here and do the meditation anyway. So for this meditation, as you know now, we want to close your eyes, and we'll get into a relaxing state for this one. But don't forget, you don't need to close your eyes to meditate. I just want to remind you of that, actually. You don't need to sit down and get into a deep state of meditation. You can meditate all day long and doing things. We're going to talk more about that next month in the spiritual layer. But for now, let's close our eyes, get into a nice comfortable position. Doesn't matter what position you're in, apart from not lying down, hopefully, because you'll probably fall asleep. Okay, we should always start a meditation by doing some deep breathing, because it just calms the mind down and calms the body down. So, don't do yogic breathing, but just breathe deeper than normal. Some nice deep breathing for a little while. While you're taking these deep breaths, just take the opportunity to notice where your focus of attention is and how it jumps about quite a lot. Keep breathing nice and deeply. Notice that your focus of attention jumps around and wants to be distracted all the time. It doesn't like being directed. Keep breathing nice and deeply. While we're waiting to calm down, just have a little check around your body now. Look for any tension spots in your body. And if possible, just relax your muscles slightly. especially in the shoulders. Keep breathing nice and deeply. Okay, now we're going to choose an object of meditation to focus on. Let's start with our breathing. Just move your focus of attention to your chest area. Try and find the sensations of your breathing. The chest is moving in and out very gently. And focus on those sensations. That's your object of meditation. Focus as hard as you can on those feelings. Don't let your mind wander anywhere else. As soon as you get distracted, just bring your focus back to those sensations. Your mind will get distracted by sounds or feelings, but also by thoughts. Thoughts that come through your mind will try and take your focus away from your object. As soon as you realize you've been distracted, push your focus back to your object. Feelings of your breathing. Your mind stream may well be constant, thought after thought after thought. That's okay. Just keep trying to ignore those thoughts and keep your focus on the movements of your chest as you breathe. And allow those thoughts to just appear in the background, but don't let them distract you. Now let's add an object of meditation. Use a visualization. Visualize a ball of blue energy around your heart area. Deep electric blue ball of energy in the center of your heart area. Can you see it? Try and see it and focus on it. That deep electric blue color is now starting to pulsate from the ball of energy. Pulsating and radiating out electric blue energy. Keep focusing as hard as you can on that pulsating blue ball of energy in your heart. Now you start to realize that that blue energy is unconditional love. You're starting to feel a strong sensation of unconditional love in your heart area. Keep bringing your focus back to your ball of energy and unconditional love in the heart area. Now the unconditional love is starting to radiate out along with the pulsating blue energy. Every time you get distracting thoughts, just bring your focus back to that radiating love in your heart center. Now let's change the object of meditation again. Let's go to visual meditation. With your eyes closed, visualize a purple dot directly ahead of you in between your eyes. Can you see the purple dot? If you can't, that's okay. Just stare directly ahead of you to an imaginary point in the distance. Focus intently on your purple dot. All of your attention should be on your purple dot. Nothing else exists in the world right now apart from you and your purple dot. The harder you focus on your object of meditation, the more the mind stream will start to calm down and less thoughts will distract you. Keep focusing intently on your point or your purple dot. Now start to become aware that there is a split between you and your object, your dot. There is you, the subject, looking at the purple dot, the object. You are the conscious presence of awareness. It is that which is looking at your purple dot. Okay, now we can start to relax our focus. As we're slowly going to start to come out of the meditation. You can start by activating your breathing just a little bit deeper than normal. Maybe start to move your toes around a little bit and fingers. A couple of deep breaths just to activate your body. You can take your time. Whenever you're ready, you can start to open your eyes.